Grace Ellington, 65, a retired high school literature teacher, lived alone in her old wooden house in Oregon, the same house she had once shared with her husband, Thomas, before cancer took him. Life was quiet, almost peaceful, until one rainy afternoon when she slipped on her kitchen floor. The fall wasn't serious, but during her short hospital stay, Grace overheard something that broke her heart. Half conscious behind the curtain, she heard her daughter Victoria on the phone. "If Mom doesn't fully recover, we should think about the house. It's just sitting there wasting value. She doesn't need all that space anymore." Then came Charles, Victoria's husband, speaking to the doctor like a businessman closing a deal. If she doesn't regain full mental capacity, what's the process for establishing guardianship over her estate? Later that night, her son Evan and his wife Sophie arrived. Sophie asked softly, "Did anyone check if your mom has a will? We should probably know that, just in case." Grace lay still, pretending to sleep, listening to every word. That night, under the sterile hospital light, she made a decision that would change everything she would pretend to have memory loss. Only two people would know the truth, her best friend Helen Porter and Dr. Samuel Reed, her former student and now her physician. "You don't need to test them to know who they are," Helen warned. "I do," Grace whispered. "I need to know if they still see me as a person or just a problem." What her children didn't know was that she still held nearly $9 million in shares from Thomas's old tech firm money. He had once told her to reveal only if they prove worthy of trust. Back home, Grace walked into a theater of concern. Victoria fluttered around the kitchen, Sophie brought flowers and practiced sympathy, Charles asked pointed questions about her finances. Only Liam, her 12-year-old grandson, was genuine. Sitting on her lap, he whispered, "I like you better this way, Grandma. You don't make me practice piano anymore." That night, Grace stared into the mirror. "I'm still here," she murmured, "even if no one sees me." Her thoughts drifted to better days, Sunday mornings with Thomas's jazz records, stacks of essays by the window, children's laughter in the yard. But now those children had turned into strangers. A week later, Victoria began rearranging her mother's bookshelf, calling it dangerous clutter. That was when Grace's patience hardened into quiet resolve. She hid voice recorders around the house. Days later, the recordings revealed the truth. "If she doesn't improve, we act," Victoria said. "Sell the house," Evan replied. "Put her in a care facility." "Then it'll all be ours," Victoria concluded. Grace sat in darkness, her heart breaking but her eyes dry. That night, she found Thomas's final letter. "Don't let pain harden you. Love them, even if it hurts. But don't let them take the parts of you I loved most, your kindness, your light, your fire." Grace played her part well. She forgot names, misused words, smiled vaguely, but inside, she listened carefully. One afternoon, Liam said, "Mom says you don't understand things anymore." "And what do you think?" Grace asked. "I think you still do." "Then I'll never forget your name," she smiled. Meanwhile, Sophie brought an insurance appraiser to inspect the house. 2 days later, Charles arrived with documents. "Just a few papers to sign power of attorney, medical proxy." "I don't understand," Grace said softly. "It's just to protect you," he smiled, "so no one takes advantage." Grace said nothing, but she knew exactly who was trying to. Victoria soon organized what she called a family meeting. They sat around the table like executives. "Mom," Victoria began, "we need to talk about long-term care. The Beaverton facility is excellent." "If we wait too long, the house might lose value," Evan added. "We can use it to fund her care." "We're just worried," Sophie smiled sweetly. From the corner, Liam whispered, "I like my room. I don't want Grandma to go away." "Don't worry, sweetheart," Victoria laughed. "We're just talking about Grandma. No one lives forever." Grace stayed silent, memorizing every word. That night, she wrapped a hand-embroidered handkerchief and Thomas's silver compass in a small box and hid it beneath a floorboard. "If they take me away," she murmured, "he'll find it someday." A man in a windbreaker came to the door one morning, asking, "Any elders here? Anyone with cognitive issues?" Grace said nothing. He walked away to a silver SUV parked nearby, and she knew it was Victoria's doing. That same day, Helen called, terrified. Someone followed me from the bookstore. I think they're watching you too. Then, one afternoon, Liam found one of the recorders. Grandma, it's still on. I heard Aunt Victoria say a bad word. Can I play it again? Before she could stop him, the voices filled the room. Sell the house. She won't even notice. She's not going to live forever. Before she could calm him, Sophie appeared. What's that, Liam? It was Grandma's. It had Aunt Victoria's voice. Sophie's smile froze. Give it to me, honey. That night, Grace heard Sophie whisper outside Liam's room. You're not supposed to repeat what you hear. Do you want Grandma to go away forever? Then came a faint slap and Grace bit her hand to keep from crying. The next morning, Charles arrived again. Given your condition, we're preparing the incapacity paperwork, just to keep things orderly. Grace pretended not to understand. But she knew Dr. Reed would never sign it. Later, she found her journal moved, with Victoria's handwriting scrawled across a page, unstable, paranoid, dangerous to herself. That night, she went to the church near her home, sitting in silence under stained glass. She didn't pray for strength, only for clarity. She could almost hear Thomas's voice again. Don't let them take the parts of you I loved most. Dr. Reed visited socially, tested her cognition quietly, and nodded. She was perfectly fine. From then on, Grace sharpened her performance, shaky hands, vague smiles, but behind every look, a plan. She began planting seeds. Charles, does your firm still handle estate fraud cases? She asked casually. Later, when they reviewed nursing home brochures, she murmured dreamily. I hope the new owners like the oak tree outside. It drops branches in October like when Victoria spilled her coffee last year. Victoria froze. That meeting had been secret. That night, Grace found the handkerchief she'd embroidered for Liam burned in the trash. She closed the lid and wrote in her journal, Sophie, no mercy. Liam protect at all costs. She tore up her old will and rewrote it, leaving the beneficiary lines blank. I'll fill them, she whispered, when someone proves they deserve more than a bloodline. Sunday came the day Thomas once called sacred. Now it was a stage for hypocrisy. We thought we'd have dinner before the move, Victoria said. We've arranged everything, Charles added. A great facility, full-time care. You won't have to cook or fall again, Sophie smiled. Evan said quietly, We sold your Honda. Use the money for the deposit. I didn't say you could sell it, Grace replied evenly. Silence. Come on, Mom, Victoria forced a laugh. You don't even remember what day it is. It's Sunday, Grace said, and you've come here to erase me. Then she pulled a small black speaker from under the table and pressed play. Static. Then, once she's out of the house, sell it immediately. She won't live forever. Use my firm. We'll get guardianship. Don't let the kid get attached. When the recording ended, no one moved. You spied on us, Victoria shouted. I survived you, Grace said quietly. Charles stammered excuses. Sophie sobbed. Evan lowered his head. I thought at least one of you still loved me, Grace said, voice trembling. Not for what I have, but for who I am. No one replied. One by one, they left. Only Liam turned back, hugging her tightly. I still want the compass. It's already yours, she whispered. The next 2 weeks were filled with silence. Grace wrote letters to each of her children, no accusations, no anger, only truth. None of them were ever opened. She met with her lawyer and quietly transferred everything, the house, the stocks, the land, and the remaining accounts, into the Thomas Ellington Foundation for Education and Dignity in Aging. For her grandson, she created a special endowment, the Liam Compass Grant, for curious children with steady hearts. Attached to it was a handwritten note, so you'll always find your way, even when others lose theirs. Grace was not seeking revenge. What she wanted was clarity, and a peace that could not be stolen. But consequences came all the same. Victoria tried to sue, claiming she had been manipulated, but the recordings destroyed her case and her reputation. Evan, drowning in debt, called his mother for help, but she never answered, not out of cruelty, but because she knew he wasn't calling as a son anymore. Sophie left him soon after, taking with her what little remained of his pride. And Charles lost his position at the firm when one of the recordings leaked, the one where he had coached Victoria on how to falsify medical evidence. Each of them faced the quiet weight of their own choices, while Grace, for the first time in years, finally felt free. Grace packed lightly a few books, Thomas's compass, the burned handkerchief she'd repaired. Helen drove the truck. They moved to a small seaside cottage 2 hours up the coast, white walls, blue shutters, daisies along the fence. The ocean whispered outside. That first night, Grace slept deeply, the first real sleep in years. Soon she began teaching again, small writing classes at the library. The children called her Miss Grace. Writing isn't about showing what you know, she told them. It's about surviving what you feel. One afternoon, a little girl asked, "How do you forgive someone who doesn't want to be forgiven?" Grace looked out at the ocean. "You don't do it for them," she said. "You do it so you can keep walking." That evening, Grace lit a candle beside Thomas's photograph. The sea breeze moved through the curtains. She opened her journal and began to write. Silence is not stupidity. Forgiveness is not weakness. But trust, once broken, it never comes back. She wrote until the candle burned low. Outside, the waves erased footprints in the sand, carrying away the last traces of betrayal. And inside the small cottage by the sea, Grace Ellington, once nearly erased by her own family, finally found peace in the sound of her own pen.